So, um, you know how you can read the Bible and read it a dozen times, 2 dozen times, as many times as you can, and every now and then you'll stumble upon a text that you obviously have read over and over, but you've never fully appreciated until just this one time that you sit down and you look at it and you think, I can't believe what I'm reading. How have I never considered what this is actually saying before? That's happened to me a few times. It just happened to me when I was studying Luke chapter 11. There's a small little section of text from about verse 37 through 40. I'm looking at it right now. 9 or so. Maybe all the way down to 52. So there's this chunk of text, about 10 verses long or so, where Jesus goes to dinner with a Pharisee. He invites Jesus to his house to dine with him. Jesus obliges, goes to his house, sits down, and waits for the food to be served. But Jesus did not wash his hands before dinner. He did not observe the ceremonial custom of the Pharisaical kind of hand washing. And so because of that, the Pharisee balks at him. And so Jesus immediately jumps on him and starts attacking him for his traditions and his binding of his traditions. And he says that you care too much about cleaning the outside of the cup and the platter, but you don't mind that the inside is completely filthy. And he's not talking about dishes. He's talking about the Pharisees themselves, how they care too much about the outward appearance that they don't really put any thought or effort into the inward. And Jesus goes on to say, you people, you Pharisees, you will tithe to the lowest decimal point that you can. You'll tithe to the tiniest degree to make sure you hit exactly 10%. But you don't practice justice and you don't practice love. You only care about meeting a quota. You only care about reaching a certain percentage point so that you tithe exactly like the law says. You care about being a stickler, but you don't care about the heart of the matter or of the justice or love that God requires. And so Jesus, in the course of all that, says, woe to you, scribes and Pharisees. He says, you guys are like whitewashed tombs. Now, he'll use that illustration in another example, in another story, when he'll say, you're like tombs that are white on the outside but rotten on the inside. But that's not what he says here. Here, he says, you Pharisees and you scribes, you're like whitewashed tombs without the names on them anymore, and people just walk over them. People walk by them without giving them a second thought. Now, that is a strong shot to the ego of these Pharisees, who prided themselves on being seen and praised by men. And Jesus says, nobody sees you. Nobody cares. Nobody is paying attention to you because they know you don't love them. They know you don't care about them. So they're not thinking anything of you. And when he says that, one of the lawyers, the scribes, raise their hands and says, Lord, when you say these things, you're reproaching us too. And my master just kind of pivots. And he says, woe unto you, lawyers. Woe unto you, scribes. You will put burdens and heavy pressures on the people to live up to your standards and your expectations of the law, but you won't lift a finger to help them. That's totally different from my master. You can see how this could affect the heart of my master, who cares about the inward of a person more than the outward, who gives us, his people, many commands, but not a one that he himself was not prepared to follow and obey. We follow the example of Jesus, and he expects us to follow that example. And when we fall short, his grace covers the difference. So he's the exact opposite of the scribes. He's the exact opposite of the Pharisees. And so here on this dinner, that difference is put on display. And so that's just a text that I was stumbling upon, and I thought, look, this perfectly encapsulates what was wrong with the modern Jewish person in Jesus' day and how much different he wants his people to be in his spiritual kingdom. He wants us to be a people who are loving, who are kind, who are filled with justice, who are desirous to help those who have great burdens, and people who will follow the law but will understand the point of the law is to help us be closer and more like God. God bless.